Thanks for joining us here tonight. Really appreciate you coming along. We're back into the swing of things after the summer vacation down here in the Southern Hemisphere. I note that we've got people joining us, at least so far, from as far away as San Francisco. So thank you for joining us. Those of you in Perth, thanks for coming along. Those of you in Brisbane and so on, I hope we've got the time zone correct, and that those of you who, I guess those of you who haven't got the time zone correct aren't with us yet, but we'll see them in an hour or so, or we would have seen them half an hour ago. So tonight the topic is for Windows users of Dragon. So if you're using Mac, this probably won't be too good for you. We'll have a Mac session, probably the session after next, if I can organise it, or maybe the next session. But what we're going to do tonight is, just looking at the agenda, I'll go through a few items of news, and then dealing in particular then with some of the professional options that you've got for Dragon speaking. And after that, we'll do a quick question and answer session for those of you that sent in questions, and I'll talk about that later on as well. So let's kick off with looking at the news. The first thing is an announcement from Nuance. We're very pleased today to announce the availability of the Dragon Professional Group software. Dragon Professional Group is the latest member of the Dragon Professional series. Last October we launched Dragon Professional Individual, and we are now launching Dragon Professional Group along with the Nuance User Management Center, which allows larger organizations to manage that environment and maximize their usage of Dragon and get the most out of the solution that they can. So this is available now in Australia, New Zealand, Asia Pacific generally. It shipped a little bit earlier in the States for those of you over there. And for those of you in larger organizations, it's worth looking at to check out what you can use it for and how it can make your organization more efficient. The kinds of things, I've got a slide there that shows you the differences between individual and professional and group, sorry. Most of you won't need to take advantage of those things, but the kinds of things that group supports is the things that would help a larger organization. So things like the ability to deploy the software on Citrix and use it in a virtual environment where the PCs are actually stored back in a server cabinet somewhere and everybody runs a thin client PC. Also, for those organizations that do have real machines on people's desks, you can actually push the Dragon software out to the machine and have it installed remotely on that machine. The Nuance User Management Center, as I mentioned, just puts a layer of efficiency over the top of all of that and makes it easier to manage and use. So for a large organization, for example, there's one government department that has hundreds of licenses of Dragon, but they're having trouble keeping track of where they are. And this sort of tool allows them to load up all the licenses, and if they see that 10 people in Adelaide aren't using a Dragon license, but some people up in Darwin need it, they can redeploy the licenses to those who really need it. I guess it's also worth updating on Dragon Anywhere, which was the other component that Nuance announced last year. This is the application that runs in the iPhone or iOS environment and the Android environment and gives you a cloud solution so that you can dictate in much the same way as you do on Dragon on the desktop using your mobile device. That's available now in the US. It's just become available in the UK and also Germany. Nuance hasn't yet filled me in on when that's going to be available in Australia, but we'll let you have some news about that as soon as we know it. But for the moment, that's not available here yet, but hopefully in the pipeline and coming soon. Okay, onwards. The next thing to talk to you about is the next live event. So we have had one live event so far in Sydney to launch the Dragonology user group, and I promised you last time that we'd organise future events. The next event's going to be in early Melbourne. We're just trying to tie down a date with some venues, and Nuance, our sponsor, is helping us track down some of those places to get a nice place that's central in Melbourne that has a little bit of ambience that's suitable for Dragon users. And you will get an invitation if you're in Victoria, and I'll post some information on the Dragonology website for those of you who might be visiting. And please come along, see the presentations, get to know your fellow Dragonologists, and maybe learn a little bit more about how Dragon works. Content is still to be determined. If you'd like to do a short presentation on some aspect of Dragon, please let me know. We'd love to have other people talking about Dragon and how they use it. At the moment, one of the topics I'm looking at is I've just got this brand new Surface Pro about 5 days ago, Surface Pro 4, and my plan will be to give you a rundown on that and show you how that's running Dragon. It's still early days for it with me, but it's going well so far, and I'm overcoming its interesting personalities. So we'll talk about that perhaps. We hope maybe to have a guest speaker, and there'll be nibbles and drinks and the general opportunity to network with other people that use Dragon to try and learn more about how you can get the most out of this software. If you'd like to present, just let me know. All right, the other question I've had a few times after the first event and the first live event and the webinar is that many people didn't know about Dragon Professional Individual last year, and Nuance has kindly agreed to repeat the upgrade offer that it made at the time of the launch and extend that to people on the Dragonology mailing list. Now, this software is not being discounted probably except for the launch offer, so this is a great opportunity for you to jump on board. We'll get an email out to you in the next week or so letting you know the details. You can either buy directly from the online store that Nuance runs, or you can contact your favourite Dragon VAR, value-added reseller, and talk to them about getting hold of it, and we'll organise something with them as well, whichever you prefer to do. So please go ahead and check that out and see what you think. Now, next session. Oh, let me just look. I'm driving the show here today, so I'm just looking at the chat window to see if there are any questions. Jen, are you okay with your page? You're frozen. I'm just going through the chat window, just looking to see if I can provide any live feedback with anyone. Any chance of a Dragonology live in or near Canberra? Palarang asks. Love to run one. It's on my list, as is Brisbane. I think after Melbourne, Brisbane is going to happen, but Canberra is certainly a destination probably on the list after that one. So if you're in Canberra and you'd like to come to an event, please let me know again. The more people I hear from, the more chance we have of running it in the near future. So Brisbane is definitely booked in after this one. Canberra could be the one after that. Just let me know if you're interested, and we'd love to run one near you. Okay, Jim. Jim's restarted his machine. I hope he's okay. Now, the next segment is called Stuff You Can Use. And last time we pretty much ran a Q&A session, which is great, and I think you can get a lot out of that, and we'll keep doing that. But what I wanted to see if we could start doing is showing people how they can use Dragon even more. So how you can get more out of the software and use features that you may not know about. Now this is a hard one. It's kind of like Q&A because you need to work out what people want to know, and it's hard to meet everybody's ideal level of interest. So the great thing is if you don't like this, and you can just switch off and then come back later on and watch it on video and see what you think. But one of the things that I see a lot of legal professionals in particular getting great value out of is Dragon's ability to do transcription. And transcription, we're playing semantics here, but we say dictation is where you talk to the computer live. Transcription is where you take a recording of the audio and get Dragon to process that for you. And today I thought I'd take you through some of the options you've got for transcription in the new Dragon Professional software. There's a couple of use cases you can see on the slide there, in that you can, with this latest software, you can just transcribe any random person that you've got a recording of, given sufficient audio quality and enough to correct a little bit of it. You can transcribe any random person in Dragon Professional Individual, and you can use that to basically do things like transcribe lectures, transcribe speeches, etc., so long as there is one person talking. So just to emphasize again, people keep asking, I want to transcribe an interview, I want to transcribe a meeting, etc., and that's not yet possible. So we're still stuck with the limitation, if you like, of one speaker, but this is a big improvement in that you can actually take any person and transcribe what they say. So how might that work? Let's have a little look at that. So if we could switch to the to the PC, please. And what I'm going to do is play a little bit of a
And Occam's razor this week takes you to the city that lasts forever.
Audio broadcast for you.
Why would you want such a place to live in? Nick Sharp is a planner of sorts from northern Sydney. Human-caused climate change is our second biggest existential challenge.
So that's an excerpt from an ABC radio program called Occam's Razor, the one I listened to most recently. And what we're going to do is show you how to transcribe that all by itself and without having set up, without knowing the person, without having them read to the system and set up a profile in the way that you used to do it. For those of you that knew it before, you actually had to read a document and record that document, probably about 2 or 3 pages worth, and then have Dragon process that document. You don't do that anymore. So what I've done, if we go to the desktop, you'll see that I've actually edited a 2-minute segment of that interview, and I'm going to use that as the basis for my transcription, just so that we're not sitting here for a long time to watch Dragon do its work. I've got Dragon Professional Individual running on the screen here. You can see the Dragon bar which pops in and out for those of you that haven't seen the new version. The way you go about transcribing a random recording from somewhere else is you set up a profile for it. You go up to the Profile Manager and you say New User Profile. And you say New, we're creating a new profile, and this is how you would go about setting up a new user on Dragon, which is effectively what you're doing here. And once you click on the next though, we'll enter this, we'll say Nick on Radio National. Click on the next button and select the region as you would before, because Nick is an Australian speaker. We're going to choose Australia as our region. And then we can choose an audio device. So in this case, Dragon normally expects you to be most commonly using an audio device to speak directly to it. But what we're going to tell it is that we're going to use a transcription source. So this is the audio device that's available for real-time speak, which Dragon thinks you might want to use by default. But these are the other ones that you can choose. So in this case, we're going to choose a transcription source, which is actually an audio file. Those abbreviations there, the .wav, .mp3, .wma, etc., those are audio file formats, as you probably know. So these are the formats that Dragon supports for bringing audio into the system. So we choose that transcription source and click Next. And then we need to choose the sample recording. So this is the sample that's on my desktop. I can click Browse. I then get taken to the normal dialog for finding a file. It shows me all the audio files on my desk, and I'm going to choose Occam's Razor 2 minutes, just that 2-minute segment that we just saw before, and click on Open. Now, your option here is you can start listening after 20 seconds. So Robin Williams did the introduction to that clip. If I was using the full recording, I could just skip 20 seconds and that would actually exclude Robin's introduction, so that I'd only be transcribing that one speaker's voice and using that for setting up the profile. In this case, I've just edited out Robin at the start, so I've got 2 minutes of Nick talking online. So I'm just going to click Next. Now, Dragon goes away and processes the first minute of recording in that file. And previously, as I said, you had to read to Dragon, and then Dragon knew what you'd read and could process it. The speech recognition process now has got so efficient, so accurate, that Dragon can process that first minute, and then after it's done that, it will present you with a transcription of what it's transcribed from the audio. So in a few seconds, we should see on the screen the audio, the words that Dragon has worked out that have been spoken. The process after that is that we correct any mistakes in the audio, and we can go ahead and then make the profile based on those corrections. So while we're waiting, I'll just check the chat window to see. Oh, there we are. Integration questions. One of the challenges I had in the past was getting the WAV files into an MP3 format for Dragon. Yep. So hopefully that's all fixed now. We'll talk more about the formats you need to be able to support to do the transcription, but it's certainly been a lot harder in the past to do this process. All right, so what we can see on the screen now is that Dragon has transcribed the audio, and I can play this back and just look for mistakes. So let's see what happens when I click the play button, and we'll hear the audio as Dragon tells me what it heard, and then we'll go along with the text and see what it saw.
Human-caused climate change is our second biggest existential challenge, and it's a subset of the biggest, which is...
So there was a mistake there. He actually said it's there, I think. So we can do the correction there.
which is achieving total sustainability. That is mandatory. Currently we use up non-renewables and faster than ever
So there's another mistake. Instead of renewables, it said renewable is, and then there was an and after that. So we correct that.
before. That will stop once they've all gone. Avoiding further climate change requires we stop burning fossil fuels. Total sustainability requires that we stop using up all non-renewables. That's not the
So same again, it missed the plural on renewable and put an is in there, so we'll correct that one.
unthinkable stop using non-renewables.
And the same again.
Become assets to cherish, not consumables to trash. We must also stop over-harvesting fragile renewables. We vacuum the sea and wreck the broodstock. No more fish.
Okay, so it's got or, and that should be no more fish. So correcting that with the keyboard.
We clear fell timber on
We clear fell rather than clear felled.
rainforest hillsides. Millennia of soil is lost in the next monsoon. We must nurture the land, the waters, the air, and most living species. Obvious?
So nurture the land, the water. So it was the waters. Check that again. Oh, it thinks we got to the end, so it's wanting us to go on. So we'll just go on there. And now Dragon will go ahead and adapt those corrections and create a new profile for me. Now, this takes about 5 minutes, and I don't want to have you sitting there while I extemporize for 5 minutes and not do anything very exciting for that time. So I'm going to cancel this process. So back on the screen, I click on the cancel button. And I'll exit without saving changes. Now, in the best of demo traditions, I'm going to say, here's one I prepared earlier. So I'm going to actually open a profile that I created, doing pretty much exactly what you saw me do there. And I'm going to show you what you do after that to actually transcribe a full piece of audio. So this is the one we just created, which is still waiting there to be finalized. The one that I prepared earlier is called RN Occam's Razor. So what I'm going to do is close this one, and I'm going to say open profile. Close user profile. There's the one that we didn't finish, so we need to close it. I'm going to say open user profile, and I can choose RN Occam's Razor. Click on open, and that will then open the profile that I made earlier today using exactly the same technique that you just saw me apply. Now that's ready to go. So the next step then is to transcribe the audio, the full audio if you like, and have that turned into text that you can do something with. This is really easy. What you do is you go up to the Tools menu in Dragon and click on it. When you're on the Tools menu in Dragon, you'll see that you can choose Transcribe Recording. You click on that, and really simple, it asks you for an input file and an output file. So you've got options there of recognizing some commands in the audio. In this case, it's not really necessary, but it's not going to do anything because it's a radio broadcast and it hasn't been done with the intention of there being any edits or commands to correct dictation actually in the recording. We'll see next how that might work if you're doing personal recordings. So what we do is input file, and this time I'm going to choose the same file in fact, but I'm going to transcribe the whole recording, and then we give an output file, and by default it just gives the output as a .rtf file, a rich text format file, which is your only option in this case, and we click on transcribe. Now there's one other option we could have chosen there, and that option is to do formatting automatically and to have Dragon try to insert commas and periods, full stops at the appropriate points in the transcription. Now those of you that have tried that before, it turns out that doing punctuation is a a combination of art and science. People all punctuate differently, and it turns out to be quite a hard problem to automate. It's also something that hasn't been, I don't think, focused on much in the last few years. So automatic punctuation for something like this is better than none, because otherwise you get a huge string of text when you've got an unformatted speech or something like that. So having automatic punctuation turned on helps that. I'll show you how to do that in a second. So that transcription is complete. It took about 30 seconds for 1 minute. Your mileage will vary on the efficiency rating there. You've then got the choice of opening the file in DragonPad, the built-in word processor that's built into Dragon, opening it in Microsoft Word, copying the text to the clipboard, or not doing anything else. Let's, in this case, just open it in DragonPad. And lo and behold, here's the text that we've got. And because originally when I first tried this earlier, yesterday, it didn't get Kiribati and Tuvalu as errors. It actually got them, it spelt them out phonetically and had some interesting combinations. But yesterday, I actually corrected these countries and was able to update the profile. So if you find a mistake anywhere here, and you can do exactly what you saw me do when I was correcting the audio, except this time you've got the playback command under the audio button in Dragon. You can click on audio, click on playback, and then Dragon will read it back to you.
Maldives, coastal Bangladesh, and perhaps the Netherlands.
Let's start at the beginning. So let's click at, put the insertion point at the beginning of the document and choose playback.
Human-caused climate change is our second biggest existential challenge, and it's a subset of the biggest, which is achieving total sustainability. That is mandatory. Currently we use up non-renewables and faster than ever before. That will stop once they've all gone. Avoiding further climate change requires we stop burning fossil fuels. Total sustainability requires that we stop using up all non-renewables. That's not the unthinkable stop using non-renewables, but they have to become assets to cherish, not consumables to trash. We must also stop over-harvesting fragile renewables. We vacuum the sea and wreck the broodstock. No more fish. We clear felled timber on rainforest.
So again, you can go in here and correct it. So you can say no more fish. I'm sorry, I should say you can also use the correction menu here too. So you can actually right-click and say correct that, which gives you the Dragon command for correcting that. So in this case, we're going to choose fish, capitalize it. It's not necessary, but that will update the profile as well. And then we can keep going on playback.
Felled timber on rainforest hillsides. Millennia of soil is lost in the next monsoon. We must nurture the land, the waters, the air, and most living species. Obvious?
And so on. So if you go ahead and correct that transcription, you can actually update the profile and get more accurate as you go forward. The nice thing is that you can then, if you're working with maybe a lecturer, you can get improved accuracy if the corrections are made as you go through. Now clearly there's a fair bit of correction required there to turn that into a usable document, but it may suit some purposes. So for example, if you're looking for text to help you find a particular part in a lecture or some kind of recording, this may be the way to do it. So that's how you go about doing transcription. The formatting options for, you notice I'd already actually, looks like I had set automatic punctuation for that profile that I prepared earlier. That's done under the Tools menu in Dragon. So you go to the Tools menu and you choose Auto Formatting Options. And you can choose to automatically add commas and periods to the transcription that you're doing. That will give you Dragon's best guess at where the sentences will finish and also put in commas. And you could see that that's not always a good guess, but it adds to the readability and gives you something to correct, and it's probably correct about 85% of the time. So that's not so bad. All right, now, so that's basically how you go about transcribing any person's recording. The next thing is how you go about transcribing your own recordings. So, whichever way you do it, there are 4 steps. The first step is to record your document. The second step is to transfer the audio file that you get from that recording, because typically you'll be doing that on another device, to transfer the audio to your Windows machine. The third step is to transcribe the audio using Dragon, and then finally to correct the transcript and format the document in the manner that you need it to be. So, just a couple of words about recording. First of all, there are a couple of ways you can do this. You can use a digital recorder, first of all. You can use your phone, or you can use your tablet. You could even use your PC if you wanted to. Each of those has pros and cons. So traditionally people have used dictaphones is the generic term, which is one particular brand, but they've used recorders from the likes of Olympus and Philips, and these devices are great. They're purpose-built for handheld recording. They can have better ergonomics than a smartphone. They're much easier to hold for people with big hands who are doing, big guys doing property inspections was the last time I came across this. They just couldn't deal with the small buttons on smaller devices, and they wanted big buttons that they could move. They've also often got integrated docking stations, bits of hardware, integration with software for managing dictation files and for putting them into queues and for sorting out those that have been transcribed versus those that haven't been transcribed. Even integration with Dragon. So for example, Olympus and Philips, you can both load in Dragon into your PC, and your Dragon Professional is able to integrate with the software that they run. And this is a really good way of managing dictation if you do a lot of it. These devices now tend to be thought of as more expensive because they're not necessarily the only way of doing this. You've now got the alternative of a smartphone. They can lock you into a particular platform, which may be a good thing depending on how much benefit you're getting out of that integrated system. On the other hand, phones and tablets, everybody's got them. They're ubiquitous. Everybody has a smartphone now or a tablet, and the apps that you can use to do recording offer you flexibility as well as a network connection for moving your files around. So with a recorder, you have to plug your recorder into a machine and transfer it somehow from the machine to the computer. Usually at the lowest common denominator level, it'll come up as a USB drive on your device, on your computer, and you can copy the file from the USB drive to your computer and then do what you want with it. We're starting to see some interesting devices talked about by the vendors of the handheld recorders that have Wi-Fi integrated with them and so on. So there's other options coming out there. But really it's up to you. Whatever way you decide to do your recording, you need to get the audio recorded and get it onto your laptop or your desktop machine. In terms of what you use on your phone, there are many apps you can choose from for both Apple and Android platforms, probably also Microsoft Phone. It's just not something I'm particularly familiar with, I'm sorry. So, the settings for your recorder are shown on the screen at the moment. The formats you just saw displayed up on the open dialog box for the file when I was setting up that profile. So WAV, WMA, MP3, DSS, which is the Olympus format, or M4A. Recording requirements, which may have been what have caused some people problems before. You need to have a sampling rate of at least 11 kilohertz at 16 bits resolution. So that's just saying that that's a reasonable sort of quality of audio you need. Typically that's not a problem these days. You can easily do double that without any problem, and most apps and recording devices will offer you even 44 kilohertz these days. You need at least 1 minute of acceptable speech, so you've got to have speech that is correctable in the way that I just showed you. If it's not good enough to correct, it's not good enough to transcribe, would be the normal statement. And then also on your Windows machine, you need to have an MP3 player installed so that you can actually play back the speech and hear what it's like. Output formats from all of Dragon's transcription settings, you can have plain text as an option. You can have rich text format RTF, which is a fairly flexible format that you can open in most word processors and move around between apps very easily. And of course there's the Word format, which is very popular as well for most people using Word as their word processor. What I'm going to show you are two ways of doing your own digital transcription. The first thing I'm going to show you is using an app on iPhone, and this is an app called Dictate plus Connect. It's one of the more expensive ones, but it's also one of the more functional ones. And I like it because it interfaces with a lot of different file sharing services and gives you many options for encrypting the file, in particularly the connection if you're moving things around that are sensitive, as most of us are as professionals, and many options for editing the recording, so you can go back and insert audio in the middle of a file and do the sorts of things that you previously had to have a dedicated handheld recorder for working with. You can see many of the features on the slide there, and you can check that out at dictate-connect.com on their website. For Apple, it's on the Apple Store, the App Store, of course, and I assume for Google, it's on the Play Store. And you can download that and have a look at it. It offers you the ability to record, to keep track of dictation files on your mobile device, and then to share them, and the sharing is the nice part. What I want to show you today is a workflow that I've seen many people work with, and they use one of these sharing mechanisms to get the audio back to the Windows machine, and they can then transcribe it. So, let's look now at my iPhone. I was just checking out what time it was in San Francisco, to see what time everybody was hooking in at. Now, what I'm showing you on the screen at the moment is the screen of my iPhone 6, and on that device I've got just a sample of some of the recording apps that you can use to transcribe. What I'm going to do is open up Dictate here and give you a very quick tour of the app. So this is a list of the dictation that I've already got on the device here. You can see there are quite a few. Oh, sorry, there are two. I deleted all the others this morning. In the settings, you've got a few things you can do. First, General will let you do basic interface things about whether you see the newer files or the older files first. Dictation is where you set the quality for your audio. So I've got mine set to 22 kilohertz, but if you value space, you can take that down to 11 kilohertz as well. You've got the ability to support Bluetooth devices. And if you're using a mobile phone, one of the challenges is that you may not have great audio in your mobile phone. I was just trying out the iPhone earlier, and the quality of the audio is noticeably worse than the ABC's Radio National program, of course. And whether that's a problem or not will depend on the accuracy that you get out of the system. So if you're not getting good results, you could try plugging in a microphone into this device or using a Bluetooth device to get the audio of higher quality. Now, Bluetooth, we've got microphone sensitivity and so on, some of the other settings there for when you're actually doing the dictation. Now, the one that I really like in this app is the sharing option. So if I tap on sharing, you'll see I've got a literal cornucopia of things I can do. I can email the application, and I can set up different email accounts so that I can send it via different ways to people when I put it on email. I've also got the ability to export it, so I can just export it to wherever I want to send it, and I've got the ability to choose the format, choose encryption if I want to do that, and choose the name of the file, what pattern is used to name the file. I can open the recording in an app, and that will actually give me a choice once I do it of all the apps that are available, and I can go ahead again and set the format for that output. And then finally, the one that I really like is I've got Dropbox already set up there ready to go, which is what I'm going to use in the demo that I show you today. But I can add a sharing destination, and you can see I've got email export. I can open it in an app as I saw. I can download it. I can use FTP, which is a rather old way of sending stuff around. I can use WebDAV. I can use SFTP, again, fairly old formats. But in the more social media sort of cloudy type of context that we're all in today, you can see I can use iCloud Drive, Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive, Box or CloudMe, etc. I've even got the option here, we're in Australia, let's do the USA so I can't be accused of advertising for anyone. Oh, let's do Australia. You can actually choose a subscription service where somebody will manually transcribe your audio for you. So you've got a great option there as well of sending it off. Once you've set up an account with one of these guys, you can do that. If you're in the US, for example, you've got a few other choices there of companies that have for a living people sitting in an office or sitting at home and doing transcription and nothing else. So you've got lots of choices there of where the audio file goes once you've done it. So in this case, I'm going to do a new dictation. And you see here an analog of a traditional recorder. I think there's a lot of room here for doing new user interfaces for these punctuations. So I can say things like, well, let me read a little bit of a press release here. Nuance Communications Australia today announced the availability of Dragon Professional Group, its enterprise-ready speech recognition software for professionals across multiple industries, full stop. Dragon Professional Group enables fast, efficient and accurate dictation of documentation, as well as robust transcription and powerful customization features, full stop. As part of a complete enterprise-ready solution that simplifies the deployment and management of Dragon across groups of users, it helps organisations gain competitive advantage by unlocking the productivity and efficiency benefits that are inherent to modern speech recognition solutions from Nuance, full stop, new paragraph. Of course, Dragon is still the best way to make documents that you can use, full stop, new paragraph. So that's my recording. Now, what I do next is I go back and I can just tap on Dropbox and it will convert my audio into the format that I've specified, and then it will transfer the data to Dropbox. Now we've got to pray to the demo gods that we've actually got a good data connection here running today, but that will go ahead and there we go. We've transferred the file back up to the Dropbox, which is in the cloud. And then what we should see, if we switch back to the Windows machine, Dropbox, for those of you who don't know it, lives in your system tray down here. And at the moment it says it's up to date. So let's just see if that's the case. So what I've done, and I'm sorry, can we switch back to the iPhone again? I didn't show you my Dropbox configuration. What I've done here is in my sharing, I've configured Dropbox to go into a folder called Dragonology Dictation. So you can see that Dragonology Dictation is just a folder in my Dropbox folder. And if we go back to the PC and I click on and I click on my Dropbox folder, the way this works is that Dropbox sets up a folder on your PC. Anything you put into that folder is synchronized with the cloud and any other devices that you're using. So I basically keep all my work documents in Dropbox, and then I can share that on, access it on a Windows machine, on a Macintosh, and on mobile devices as well. The great thing is that it synchronizes automatically, so if I change it on one device, it changes it automatically on another device, and I have local copies, so if I'm not connected to the internet, I can actually work on a document, and then next time I connect it will synchronize back to the cloud. So it's a way of being very productive. If you're working as a professional and maybe you have an assistant, you can set things up so that when you do a dictation, it's automatically set to your assistant, and your assistant can then look at the audio file, have Dragon transcribe it, and then correct it and format it and finish it off for you and send it back to you via Dropbox. So it gives you the ability to implement workflows on a fairly small basis. You don't need to have enterprise software to do this. It's all set up in folders and you're doing it all by yourself. So it works very efficiently. So let's just see. I'm going to double click on Dragonology Dictate. And we've got a file here called Dictation, 4th of February 2016 at 6:35 p.m, which is hopefully the one. Let's just check it out and see. So I'm double clicking on it.
Nuance Communications Australia today announced the availability of Dragon Professional Group,
That's it. So that's the file that I'm going to transcribe. So I'm going to move it to the desktop just so you can see it. And I'm going to close the Radio National profile that I had open before. So I'm closing up that profile that I just used to transcribe the Occam's Razor segment. And I'm going to open up my own profile in this case. So this is Derek's laptop profile. Again, it's one I prepared earlier. So this is the profile that I use for dictation, for doing demonstrations, etc. when I'm using these machines. And it's opening that up, and I've previously set up a profile for myself, a transcription profile, exactly the same way you saw me do it for the Radio National segment. I basically just processed a piece of audio, corrected the first minute, and then I'm up and running for dictation. So I can do exactly what you saw me do before. Click on Tools, click on Transcribe Recording, click on Browse, and then choose I need to go to the desktop, choose that dictation file there, and then click Transcribe. You'll see it do exactly what you saw it do before. It will go away and process that file, and hopefully what we'll get out of that is a transcription of the first paragraph of that press release. That's done. So again, I can open it in DragonPad or Word. I'm going to open it in Word this time. Let's see what we got. Fingers crossed. Hopefully it works. Oh no, I haven't got any text. Oh, hang on. Duration, 0 characters. The demo gods are not smiling at me today. So I'm not sure what went wrong there, and I'm not going to persist and try and work it out now. But you get the idea. So Dragon will process that for you and convert it into text. What you do get as well, I should point out, is a .dra file. So part of the output of the transcription process is a copy of the audio that allows you to sync up the audio with the transcribed text. And you saw us using that when we were doing the transcription from Occam's razor. It was syncing the playback with the text as it appeared on the screen. That allows you to correct it. And there are correction tools within Dragon as well that let you play that forward and backwards in the classic Dragon bar. It's not available in the new Dragon bar, but in the classic Dragon bar, which you can choose from here, it will take you back to the older style, which gives you little controls for navigating those different, basically for controlling the audio function, just as you'd have on a CD player or a CD player on a playback of a movie. You can stop it, you can take it forward, you can take it back. All right. Well, going well until that demo. So that's how you would use Dropbox. The next one I want to show you is, I wonder if, I want to show you how to use the auto-transcribe folder agent. Now this is something, again, that can be used to implement small-scale workflows with a group of people. What this lets you do is set up folders on your machine and associate a Dragon profile with a particular folder, and then have Dragon watch the folder for incoming transcriptions. They could be there because people have dragged them and dropped them. It could be that people on another machine have done that, so they've connected over the network and dropped it into that folder. It could even be that the folder is on a network. And this allows, again, an assistant to process the audio on behalf of other people, do the corrections, and make the audio available for you to try. The way this is done is, again, you can go to Tools and choose Auto Transcribe Folder Agent, or on the Start menu, you can go to All Apps. This is Windows 10, so may look different on your system. Go down to the Dragon section, the Dragon category on there, and choose Auto Transcribe Folder Agent from there. Now, this just brings up a fairly anonymous looking box that lets you set up tasks. And each task, as I said, has an input folder, an output folder, and a profile associated with that as well. So what I'm going to do first before I do the job is I'm going to set up a couple of folders. So I'm right-clicking on the desktop and I'm saying New Folder, and I'm going to create a folder called Incoming Dictations. I'm going to create a second folder, and I'm going to call that Transcribed Files. So I've got basically my input file and my output file. What this auto-transcribe folder agent will do is watch the input folder for files appearing there, and it will then automatically convert them across into transcribed files. Now, what we need to do here is set up a new task that does this for us. So we can say, go to the Task menu in the auto-transcribe folder agent, click on New, and very similar to what we saw before, I'll just move that down so you can see it. It gets us to choose an input directory, so I will go to the desktop, and I will choose Incoming Dictations, and I will choose an output file, so I'm going to put that into Transcribed Files, and it's sitting here ready to run once I click OK. So note that you can choose a particular profile. You can see the 3 profiles that I've created today are there, so I'm going to choose the laptop profile. The dictation source, I think what I did before, when I made my mistake, is that I didn't actually tell it that I was using a a transcription source, which I'm going to do there. And you can have output as plain text or rich text format. Let's choose rich text format. To help you even further, if you are a Windows guru or you have access to one, you can set up a command line to run here once the transcription's done. So that gives you ability to interface to other things as well, to take the output from Dragon and move it on to something else in an automated way. Now, notice that that's started up and that it's running. The other thing to remember is that you can't have the desktop Dragon profile running at the same time as the auto-transcribe agent. Only one can access the speech recognition engine at once. So I'm just going to quit out of Dragon. You don't have to quit, I think you just need to close the profile. And I'm going to ask to be reminded later of the accuracy tuning. And Dragon is now, the agent is now idle. It's sitting there watching for things to happen. Now I've got some dictation files here which are fairly ordinary, so I'll just play you one of them.
Nuance's new Dragon professional group.
So that's a little bit of a press release.
Dear Bruce, new paragraph. It was great to see you in Brisbane last week, full stop.
A letter. And all I'm going to do now, or what I'm going to do, is simulate a process. This could be what a user is doing. So I could have just got back from being out on the road for a day. I've got 3 notes that I've made while I've been out visiting people and having meetings and so on. I've made file notes if I was a lawyer, for example. And I'm going to take these files and dump them into the incoming destinations folder. The auto-transcribe agent, you'll see, wakes up. It actually has gone from being idle to saying that it's transcribing. And it's working its way through those files. It will process each of them individually, and then out of that, we'll see in the transcribed file, we'll get an audio file that's a DRA file that's got the audio associated with each of those transcriptions, and we'll also get the transcript text that comes from that document as well. So we've got now, we'll wait for this to finish. It's working on the first one. You can see there's no characters there at all yet, but it'll go through and process those and produce the finished documents ready to go. So we'll let them churn along in the background because I'm conscious that we're approaching an hour and we haven't really got halfway through the things I wanted to do. The next item on the list is question and answers. We'll try and come back and look at these later on. Now, I got a lot of questions for this session. We had over 450 people, nearly 500 people register for this event, and out of all of you, I've got about 100 questions, and I just don't have the time to do that in this session. As I said earlier, I really wanted to start having some content on some larger topics rather than just have session after session of answering questions. Not that there's anything wrong with that. What I think we'll do, I've taken the first 10 questions, those of you that got in quick, and I'm going to try and deal with those fairly quickly. And what I'll do as follow-up is I'll take the other questions, and I'm going to get hold of Gary Quigley, the guy that was with us from the UK last time. And what we'll do is offline, we won't do this live, we'll actually just have a webinar session between the two of us. I might even try and get somebody in the States to come in as well. And we'll go through those questions and see if we can give you some decent responses to them. So stay tuned for that, and I'll keep you updated on what's happening there. Let me see if I can get through some of these questions fairly quickly. Just revisiting one from Stephen Vaughan, who asked in the last question about the word will randomly appearing. And this reminded Ross Summers that he remembered that he had the same problem, and he thought it was caused by breath across the microphone, and that rings a bell with me as well. So I know, Stephen, that you said that it looks like it's not dependent on microphone type, position or ambient background noise. It may be that you're doing a sharp intake of breath or swearing at Dragon or something like that. So maybe just see if you can focus on consistency in the dictation and try not to put any strange breathing noises in there, air noises across the top of the microphone. The recommendation if you're using a headset is to keep the microphone to the side of your mouth so that you haven't got plosive, you're not puffing air over the top of the microphone. Let us know how you get on with that one. Philip asked, why does the Dragon add-in slow Outlook opening by so much? Philip, it shouldn't slow it by so much. These sort of things are hard to diagnose, and you've usually got multiple add-ins in Outlook. My suggestion would be try turning off all the other add-ins. Just go into your plugins manager in Office and turn them off and just turn on the NatSpeak one and just see how long it takes by itself as a starting point. Then maybe get back to us and we can revisit that. Just check out how it loads by itself without anything else happening there. It shouldn't take that long. Can we get as accurate as Siri? Patrick asks. Patrick, really? We are as accurate as Siri, if not more accurate, because Dragon is personal to your voice and what you say. So be helpful to understand the context there where you're finding it not as accurate. I think Siri is fantastic for short text messages and so on, and it's optimized for that, but I'd love to know the context of what you're comparing there. So are we comparing apples with apples? So remember, you've got to compare the Mac or Windows-based software with Siri on a mobile device, or on maybe on the Mac OS, I don't know. Let us know and we'll follow up and see if we can answer that in a more cohesive way next time. Does Dragon work with Windows 10? This is a good question, and from Alex, and it's come up a fair bit in the last few weeks. Yes, we do. So the story is that version 13 is just as compatible was the official advice as it was before with Microsoft Office 2016 in particular and Windows 10. There is one area where there are known problems to do with natural language commands. This is in Office 2016, which tends to be associated with Windows 10. The issues there are because basically every release of Office changes the way it does things, and natural language commands have a problem in that context. No commitment on getting this fixed at the moment for those of you with version 13. Version 14 doesn't have that problem. So version 14, the natural language commands work okay. There's no issues there that we know of. So you should be able to upgrade with confidence. Okay, William says, Dragon does not seem to register my email when I speak it in. It comes up with all sorts of variable options. Just wondering if there's a way I can correct this problem. So I started putting your mail in there, William or Bill, and I then realised you probably don't want everybody to know your email address. So I made up an email address that's similar to yours. So what I'm going to do, just switch back to the Windows machine and open Dragon again. I just want to show you one quick technique and I'll go to my laptop profile in this case. Let's just see if we've got our transcribed files while we're working on it. Yeah, so there you can see that those files that I set up to get processed before are all there, and hopefully if we open the rich text format file, this is one of the press release files. Fantastic. So that's a dictation of the press release that I made before. You can see that it's transcribed all the text in my dictation and done that in the background. So that's a great way of processing files automatically and setting up little workflows for yourself that can make you much more efficient. Now, back on here, I'm going to open a user profile. I'm going to open my laptop profile with the built-in array microphone in the Surface Pro 4. Okay, so I'm opening Derek's laptop profile. And we're loading the profile. So William Riley's question is, how do you dictate a difficult email address? And there's probably the best way of doing something like this. I guess there's two things you can do. You can use spell mode to actually enter the email and spell it out, or you can set it up as a command. So let's just see if we're cooking with gas here. I'll just manage dictation sources and check that I've got the microphone selected. So I'm choosing the array microphone as my dictation source. This is new to version 13 and version 14 of managing the dictation device as part of the profile. It's a much better way than it used to be. So let's see if this is working. I'm going to click on the microphone on button, start Microsoft Word. The Surface Pro seems to take a little bit of time to get up to speed. I've yet to work out what's going on there, but we will. Okay, so one thing you can use here for dictating difficult email addresses is to use spell mode. So just turn on spell mode by choosing it from the Dragon toolbar up there if you want to, or you can say spell mode on, spell mode on. It helps to turn the microphone on. Spell mode on. SIMMO1985 @gmail.com. So that's one way of doing an email address. And if you don't like that, I left out the @ sign. @ sign. Forgetting my own terminology. Now, if you want to turn that into a command, you can just select the text, make that a command. You've then got the option of actually giving this a name, like insert my email. You can train it if you want to. Insert my email. I tested it earlier, so it already had a name for it. New paragraph. We're still in spell mode. Spell mode off. New paragraph. New paragraph. Insert my new email. Okay, so that's a fast way of doing it. William, I hope that helps. The other thing that might help is the no space command, particularly if you're entering URLs. You can say, for example, I no space, would no space, like no space, to no space, see you no space. And that just stops Dragon putting the automatic space the spacing between the words as it recognizes them. So that may be of help to you as well. Let me know if that doesn't help and we'll get back to you. Okay, next question. Bruce Kapamick writes, I operate Dragon Naturally Speaking Premium 13 and Dragon Professional on different computers. Stability is an ongoing issue with both units. Rebooting is required from time to time. Both programs are running on Windows 10. One computer has 4 gigs of RAM, the other has 8. The computer with 8 is running Professional and I feel it's more stable than version 13 on 4 gigs of RAM. Is larger availability of RAM advantageous in running Dragon programs? It generally is, so the more RAM you have, the more space you have to play, and that applies not just to Dragon, of course, that applies to most programs on Windows. And 4 gigs is usually sufficient, but if you're running Office, if you're running a CRM system and a few other things as well, the more space that is available, the faster things will run in particular. But that shouldn't necessarily cause you problems of the kind that you're describing. So I guess I'd ask why you're not using Professional in both locations. Your Professional license allows you to install the software on as many machines as you're using. So I'd start by maybe standardizing your environment and putting Professional on both machines. If there's a reason you're doing that, let me know. That may be a starting point. More RAM will help, but it's a case of what else are you running. Get somebody who knows Windows to look at your activity monitoring and just see what's happening on there and see that there's not another process that's causing the problem. If you're still having issues, get onto support and they may be able to help you debug it further. Wayne Zanker asks, I use a lot of numbers both as words and numerals. Dragon comes up with a dialog box asking me to make a choice. Is there any way to switch this feature on or off because its rules are too limited? This is a pretty easy one, Wayne. I think this is the auto formatting causing you the problem. So again, if we look at the screen, the Dragon menu bar, under Tools, you've got an auto formatting option there. You can just turn off that automatically format text and that should stop prompting you to determine which default format you want, and then you can choose whatever you want if you need a flexibility that you haven't got. So try that, turn it off. If you've still got problems, let us know, we'll take it from there. All right, just a reminder that much as I'd love to, I can't respond to all your cries for help. I've had hundreds of emails which I've tried to help people with, but Nuance runs a support line, of course, which we've mentioned. It runs that in Australia, it runs it in New Zealand, it runs it in the States. You can get details of how to access it from our local website. So that's australia.nuance.com/support. For US people, it's nuance.com/support. That's the place to go for some help, and hopefully we can help you there. There are also lots of downloads, documents that you can get, the cheat sheet for the product you're using, the user guide, some videos, and so on. So there's help there if you need it, and that's probably the first place to go. Please call the support guys for help and they'll do their best to help. Now I'm just going to have, before we wrap up, I'm just checking, good to see some chats there helping each other on the chat line, that's great. I can't see any questions there for me. If anyone wants to put in a question right now, I'll take a look at it straight away. But I think you're solving all your own problems. That's fantastic, good to see. That's what the group is for. And I hope we can get better ways of doing this in the future too. So, I think from my point of view, that's the end of the session. We're right on the hour and I don't want to keep you away from your dinner. Thank you for coming along tonight. As I said, I have nearly 100 questions for the session today. We've just dealt with 10 of them, and I will undertake to get hold of some more interesting personalities like Gary. Gary was very popular last time, and I'll get him along, maybe one of our colleagues in the US as well, and we'll see if we can brainstorm some of these issues. Often the issues are environmentally related, so they're not things that necessarily we can solve off the top of our heads because you need to troubleshoot. As you know, there's an infinite number of ways you can use Dragon. There's an infinite number of ways you can configure a computer, and sometimes these things collide. That's not always true, of course. There are problems with Dragon, as you know, and we need to know about any new ones that are there. So, what next? So we've got the event in Melbourne coming up next March. If you are registered with us, you'll get an invitation to that if you're in Victoria. If you're not in Victoria but you'd like to travel interstate to see it, let me know. That would be extreme keenness, and you'll definitely get a prize of some sort if you do that. This webinar will be and has been recorded. The guys at Page 2 are doing a great job running this series for us, and we really appreciate their help. It'll be up online on the Dragonology website very soon, so you can watch it again if you wish, and we'll get back to you soon. So thanks again for your support. Hope to see Victorian people in Melbourne next month, and our next Dragonology session will be coming up in about a month or so too. So we'll see you back then. Thanks again, and keep on Dragonologying.